Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Last episode. We made it. We're here. And as is the case with, it seems like most of the Disney stuff, it ended about as well as it could have. That's not saying much. But and if you have not watched the show and you are interested, I would just watch it yourself. The whole thing is out. There's a lot of very negative things being said about it. Most of it is justified, but again, I've talked about it before. I do think people have a habit of getting stuck in that negative mind space. So I try not to do that, but God, they make it hard, don't they? Anyways, try to briefly run through the episode. I'll probably miss some things and just touch on the key points. Because the show, or the episode, actually opens up with a pretty cool scene, a little gimmicky, but it was kind of neat. The Osha being kind of frozen within this helmet, and Kamir responding to her being stuck in this helmet, and his eyes kind of go black. It's kind of neat. Which, if you don't know this, if you never watched one of my things, is very spoiler heavy. So if you don't want to know, don't watch and come back later. But after that sequence, it was just kind of all it was. I think we go to Sol and May, and she gets out of her restraints because he didn't sense her, undoing the cuffs, and she kind of tases him with the droid. Why the droid still would have been in her pouch, I don't know. I don't know if the assumption is that Sol is so distraught and so emotional that he isn't seeing things clearly at this point. Otherwise, they just kind of made him out to be a big idiot, it seems, who's really unaware of a lot of things going on around him throughout the whole show, kind of. So, I don't know about that, but she gets away, gets in a pod. I hate this line. She says, "See you in hell, Jedi," and I don't know if they expect it to hit different. It just doesn't. It feels awful. So they get into this chase sequence through the ring of a planet, which is a pretty cool setting. Felt very Guardians of the Galaxy feeling. And I don't know if he's trying to shoot her or trying to, I don't know what the plan is, because it's like a targeting computer, but was his goal to just blow her up? Because that doesn't really make much sense. So I don't know if he's trying to, attach to her, or I don't really know. But then Basil comes up and starts fucking up the ship. And for what? Or, because he helps them later in the episode. Am I missing something with Basil? Was he under a spell? Or his eyes a different color? It's kind of hard to tell. When would that have happened? And why was he helping? I just don't get it. And they don't ever explain it, because the next time you see him, he's helping the Jedi again. So does he also think Sol's to blame? But I don't know. I have no idea. Because had that not happened, there's no telling what, him causing both of their ships to essentially crash on this planet changes everything, potentially. And they just don't explain it. I have no idea. Oh, whatever. So they're on Bryndock. I'm going to get to the other stuff in just a second, but there's another sequence of her climbing up, I guess, the shaft she fell down when she was little. And Sol standing 5 feet from the edge and just didn't, again, sense her, right there, because he turns around and, the second he walks away, she climbs up over the edge. It's just stuff that you could say it's nitpicking, but I feel like any normal person watching it would be like, who knows, Star Wars, if they don't know Star Wars, or the Force, or whatever, then they wouldn't think anything of it. But any normal person who knows anything about what they're watching would watch it and be like, this dude doesn't realize that there was somebody there? I mean, okay, sure. whatever. Back on the coastal planet, we get Osha and Kamir, and she has a vision that May's gonna kill Soul, and she's holding his lightsaber, but she doesn't use it, foreshadowing her seeing herself, because they keep doing this they're the same person thing, which also isn't really explored or acknowledged in any meaningful way. So that was worthwhile, I guess. So they both want to get to May, but for different reasons, I think. And they both agree that they're going to go together, and just whoever gets to her first, then so be it. You know, the really agile, sneaky Sith guy versus Osha. Seems fair. So the Jedi go to come to this planet. They gather a bunch of people. They go, well, I guess right before they go, she has this whole thing with a senator, which I like that dude. I don't know his name, but he was in some of the CW stuff. So I'm glad he had a good part, because he seems like a decent person. But he basically just tears them apart right in her face. And they've done this once already with the witches, and then they did it again. I get it. It's a prequel. But when you're writing a prequel and you're, like, specifically having characters predict what is going to happen when it makes no sense for them to know what's going to happen, drives me nuts. And the senator does it with Anakin, talking about one of you's going to snap, and emotions, you can't control them, and you know, is anybody going to be able to stop him, and so on and so forth. It's like, it's too on the nose. It feels like shit. The witches, at least it was a little more like generic, whereas this dude like almost felt very intentionally like called out, and it just feels, it almost takes me out of it when you hear it. You're like, really? Like, I get it. It's a prequel. Okay, move on. Whatever. So the Jedi, all these knights show up at the planet at the same time. Soul is looking for May. Kamir finds him, which somehow he's in there, and Osha's slicing the elevator to get in there. I thought they showed up at the same place at the same time. I don't know, maybe he's really fast. Maybe I missed something, I don't know. I am kind of fuzzy because I feel like so much stuff happened. And also, before they left the planet, you see a creepy little gremlin Plagueis in the shadows, which is weird. That means he's just there on the planet while, like, not in the living space. He's just kind of like up in the attic or something. I don't know. I kind of figured that was like setting up something to come later in the episode. Like, people were suspecting maybe Plagueis was going to show up and kill this dude at the very end. And no, that was the only thing. You get a second, you see him, he looks really CGI. Like, it looked really weird. I don't know if it was the lighting or what, but it looked strange. And that was it. So people were wanting Plagueis. Well, they got him. And it's kind of under a weird context. Theory kind of goes into more elaboration on why that's a little weird. I don't know enough about that lore to really touch on that. And again, theories takes are typically on the super extreme spectrums in some cases. But given what he was talking about, it's probably not too far off. And it is funny if he is like young, he's like just creeping on them. It is weird. But it is also funny, or I also get the distaste people have for somebody coming fresh into Star Wars and immediately trying to interject themselves into something that is so core and so important to the entirety of, you know, what it is, versus like a Dave Filoni or somebody who's been around and has put the time and effort in to create enough stuff to understand it to finally tackle those bigger topics, whereas Leslie just kind of came in and was like, yeah, I'm just gonna deal with one of like the most important things that we can, which seems to be what a lot of season 2 is going to be. And yeah, I think we're going to get a season 2. It was largely set up for a season 2, and with how many people are talking about it, there's no way they're not going to do a season 2. They don't typically care if it's negative, it seems, but people are paying and talking about it, so season 2 is probably coming. And yeah, it's probably just going to be more of the same, to be honest, with one of the best parts being Soul not going to be in it. So that's a big bummer. But we get a really, really good fight between Soul and Khmer, which you could say that about all the fights in this show. I wish there were more of them, that they were very good, with the exception of the Wookiee fight. I thought it was really underwhelming, but the choreography and stuff was really good. So that's cool. And it, except for, they did a lot of weird slow-mo in this episode, and it just felt odd and out of place. I didn't like it. But it ends, and there's some cool stuff with Soul, like force, like little impulse kind of thing, pushing away the lightsabers and Khmer and stuff. It's neat. I am sad that he's dead, because he's dead. And we'll get to that. But it ends with like this weird like samurai style like slice. It turns out Soul cut Khmer's lightsaber. Couldn't he have just used the bottom saber? Because if there's two, that means that there's whatever. He just gives up, takes the helmet off. All right, I'm done. And at that point, May comes out, fights him, takes his lightsaber, and then throws it, and it breaks. But like Obi-Wan dropped his lightsaber from like 50 stories up, and it just kind of hit the ground, and it was fine. But this one gets chucked like 10 feet and hits a boulder and breaks. So I guess technology improved a lot in 80 years. So, but she wants him all of a sudden to face justice and to face the Republic and to admit his crimes and all of this stuff. So she's all over the place. I'm not even going to bother trying to understand her motivation at this point. I just don't care. And they are talking about the stuff that happened with her mother and yada yada yada. Osha overhears it and snaps, essentially, which again also kind of feels a little out of left field, like a lot out of left field. Like it was clearly set up, but still, based on her character and what she's done, it doesn't feel, I don't know, I hated it. And if Soul was gonna die, I would rather him have died to Khmer in a fight than getting the worst force choke hand that has ever crossed the screen and getting choked while shedding a tear. I felt something when he died, which is something. I did really like Soul, and I think he had good intentions, no matter how flawed his methods may have been, I think. And they didn't really understand his weird like connection to Osha, so that's unfortunate, because now it's just a little weird. But somebody said he's having like Padawan fever. So she kills him. He says it's okay, and he dies. And while she's doing this, the saber broke, but the crystal, people have also pointed this out, that you had to bleed the crystals in your hand, and she bleeds it through the saber, but it is specifically shown that the crystal is like slightly protruding from the hilt, and you could see like stuff on her hand and it bleeding from there into it. So she is touching, it's like touching her hand. So it's kind of there, and they had to have it in the saber for the like color change thing, which I also don't feel like would have worked the way that it did, because the color would come from the crystal, but the crystal turned red already and then it ignites blue, and then it's not like a tube of water, I don't think. It's not full of blue and it ignites blue and then the red catches. It doesn't make any sense. It's fine. They wanted the color reveal, whatever. So they, at this point, I think the other Jedi land on this planet. They took their sweet ass time, because you see their ship at some other point, but they, whatever. And the payoff for the scars and the shirtless scene is about 2 seconds of Venestra sensing Khmer and saying, "Oh, you're alive." And he's like, "Oh shit, I gotta get out of here." Confirming that Khmer was Vernestra's Padawan, Khmer possibly being Tenebris, I guess? Or... I don't know. Or maybe Tenebris was before all this, because he died on an island. Again, I don't know enough about that stuff specific. I don't know. And May and Osha run off. They go out the same way that May got out all those years ago, which I guess they insinuate that she got sucked down a tube the same way that Luke did when he fell on Bespin, I guess. And they go to the tree. Khmer is just there and basically says, like, yeah, I found you, like, the Jedi are going to find you. And they decide that he's going to let May live, which doesn't really make any sense, but he does wipe her memory, so sure, fine, whatever. And Osha's going to train with Khmer. So they wipe Osha's memory, and this is kind of fucked. He wipes her memory back to when she was 8. So the only memories that she has, the most current memories that she has, is of her home burning down and her whole family dying. That's where he put her mind. So that was rude. So she gets taken by the Jedi because they know that the Jedi are going to try to use May to find Osha. It's almost like how the show started, but now we're reversed. And I'll touch on that in a minute. And Osha goes with Khmer. You get a really cringy scene of them holding hands over Soul's dead lightsaber, which is just so rude. And people are losing their mind. I hate it. I'm not for that at all. Like, give us good content. Stop focusing on weird fandom shipping. I just hate it. I'm sorry. Where you'd think Plagueis might show back up, but no, I guess he's taking a nap in his rock hole cave thing. May gets taken back to the thing, reveals that she doesn't remember anything. She's going to help Vernestra find Khmer. Vernestra pins the death of all of his friends and his murder, essentially. Sorry about that. On Soul. So, man gets no peace at all. He gets everything blamed on him, which would kind of explain why the Jedi don't think the Sith have shown up, but it definitely hasn't been a time of peace, because that's like a lot of dead Jedi. So it's not entirely accurate, but at least, relatively speaking, the thing that most people wanted of everybody who saw Khmer being dead in the Jedi occurred, but that came at the cost of, like, the best part of the show being Soul. He is also dead. So we're going to get a season 2 without Soul, unless we get flashbacks with Vernestra and Khmer and Soul. Maybe. And maybe that's why he seemed familiar to Soul in whatever episode that was. It wasn't just talking about the apothecary scene, but when he was very, very little. He said it was a long... Fuck it, I don't even care enough to try to figure it out. And then you get a scene of Vernestra talking or going to talk to Master Yoda. And it looks like they used, like, a puppet that looked like a puppet from the original trilogy, where he's, like, all little and frail and shriveled up. But he didn't look like that in the prequels. So it's like, hey, look, we used the puppet, but he didn't look like that. He would have looked different, not older. Whatever. The finale, again, I'd give it like... Oh, but I guess before. Basil shows up, helps the Jedi track May. So they don't ever explain that. Was he... I have no idea. If you guys know, let me know, because I'm so confused on Basil and why they were so insistent on him being a core part of this happening. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I would give the episode like a 5. Just pure average, middle of the road. Like, And maybe that's just my deflation of all of it, that I just can't be bothered to care about it that much, that it just feels so meh. So 5 might be generous. I would probably give the whole show a 5 as well. Like, you have some spots that trend upwards, and you have some spots that trend downwards, but for the main, it's just like middle of the road. I mean, honestly, I think the choreography is the highest point for me. It's definitely worth watching just for the saber battles and stuff like that alone. If you just want to watch those bits, it's probably fine. Kamir, once he's, I mean, even before he's revealed to be the stranger, as the like apothecary dude, he's still interesting to watch, but he becomes a little bit more interesting once he becomes the Sith. I think his performance and interest dipped a lot in this last episode. They didn't really give him a whole lot to work with. He was more interesting in, was it episode 6, when he's, you know, seducing Osha to the dark side. But yeah, it just felt like a setup for season 2. Like, I don't know. I saw a post that said that the Acolyte felt like an 8-episode long advertisement for a new Disney Star Wars show called The Acolyte, and that's pretty accurate, because we've kind of just changed everybody's starting points, but we're going into like the same kind of premise of the second season, just with some additional characters, it feels like. So yeah, it's not great. I don't think it's as terrible as everybody makes it out to be, but it's definitely not going to be my first recommendation for somebody to watch, or even like my 5th, 6th, 7th recommendation. I wish to God that Disney would get their shit together, to be honest, and replace people who need to be replaced, because we're going to keep getting the same stuff if all of those people are in the same positions, and that sucks, because they won't ever do anything about it, and for reasons that everybody knows why, and that is unfortunate. So, strange. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here while that's doing that. But yeah, disappointing experience, but that is it. I appreciate you guys being here. I'm not sure what the next thing's going to be, but whatever that next thing is, see you guys there. I will see you in the next thing. Bye.